Zach, we are back, and we are looking at moves to not make this time around as opposed to the normal moves to make. We're looking at things you should not be doing in your leagues right now. We got a boatload of things. We got some trades to dive into, some certifying moves to not make. We'll fix some trades at the end of the video, or at the midpoint of the video, I guess you could say. If you enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment down below what moves you're actually trying to make this week, some trades you're making, maybe some players you're avoiding and trying to sell as well. We'd love to hear it. And if you want to chop it up with us that much more, head on over to patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get in that Discord server for a free 7-day trial. Check out what it's all about. It's a buzz right now. The offseason is alive and well in there. It might not be that alive and well in your leagues if your rookie drafts have come and gone. Let's get to the content that people came for. Speaking of that, let's get to your first point. What do you got here?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Bob, our rookie drafts have come and gone for the most part. And what I'm not doing here, I'm making sure that at this point in the offseason, right after my rookie drafts, I'm not chasing the rookies I was not able to get in my rookie draft. There are some players that I really want on certain rosters, depending on scoring format, starting size, et cetera, team build. And you're not going to be able to get all those players in every single one of your leagues. So this is the time of the year to not go chasing after those rookies, Bob. The real offseason, I should say, is setting in our dynasty leagues. And most of our rookie drafts, like I said, have happened. Every team in your league is high on every single player they drafted, I promise you, okay? Otherwise, they wouldn't have drafted them. They would have traded back, trade out, so on and so forth. Every fourth-round pick is the next Puka Nacua. Every first-round player is the next surefire, successful pick in your league. Asking prices for these rookies are outrageous. You're very unlikely to get a fair deal. Let some time settle. Let people forget the hype. Let the adrenaline settle down. And I'll talk about the word adrenaline later in my second point. But just let things kind of wane a little bit. Let that momentum go away. And then start those conversations. Have those dialogues with your league mates. Say, hey, listen, I was kind of interested in this player in the draft. Is this a player you're looking to move, or, did you draft this guy to build around him, so on and so forth. But I am not having those conversations now because everybody is so high on these players. We talked about this in the live stream before I got cut off by my terrible internet service. Hopium is real, and it very much applies to rookie players. So something I'm just not doing at this point in the offseason, Bob, and it will correlate with my next point, which we'll get to later in the video, is I'm just not chasing any rookie player I wasn't able to get in the rookie draft. This is the time of the year where I'm looking for veteran players. I'm looking for cheaper buys. And unfortunately, these players, you can look at startup draft value. They're a little bit ridiculous right now. And that means that the hype is too much for some of these rookie players. That might change a month or two from now. It might not, but it's certainly not going to be lower today or whenever you're watching this video than it was at the point of your rookie draft, unless you're watching this video in like September or August.
I don't hate that one bit, Zach. I think that for the most part, I agree with this. I will say, though, I do think that there are probably some caveats to the mention of everybody loves who they drafted, because at the end of the day, not everybody's able to trade out. Not everybody's able to trade back. Not every draft is slow, although we think they should be. But, you might end up taking some players that you don't love just because, hey, maybe the value is good. Maybe, X player fell further than they maybe should have. And then, whatever the case is, I just don't think that's 100% factual. Well, it might be more likely, but I think there are situations that exist where that's not the case. But I do think that there are a lot of players out there that do think every fourth round pick and fifth round pick is this surefire player for sure as well, though. Everybody's favorite sleeper is the best sleeper, and it's always a sleeper that's going to pan out. And I think to parry with this point, I guess you could say, I'd suggest highlighting players that you might not be buying now, but maybe guys that are set for a rocky start to the season, or, have a lot of competition in front of them. Who are some guys that value might be coming off the rookie high now from the draft itself, but once we get to the regular season, who are some guys that might be struggling once we get to the early parts of the season that might signify some buy windows, as opposed to trying to buy now at the absolute highest price, maybe able to buy a little lower later, especially if they are a case where, hey, this wasn't their favorite player that they drafted. It was a value pick, whatever the case is. I tend to agree. It's tough to make moves for rookies after the rookie drafts. As much as we talked about this a couple weeks back. I want to go get Malik Neighbors because I haven't been able to get him anywhere, but everybody's in love with the guy right now. So I need him to, struggle a little bit early on and maybe I can actually make some ground up and getting a deal done for that. Moving along to my point here, rolling right along here. My move to not make is do not make your all-in moves right now. Save some ammo for the regular season. At the end of the day, it's a long off season and it's a long regular season too. And as much as I'd love to fill any lineup gaps now, or especially depth gaps before the season starts, I know that throughout the trials of the season, I'm going to lose players to bye weeks, injuries, and I'm going to have to fill gaps later too. So if I spend all of my draft capital right now, how am I going to fill those holes outside of selling players that are injured or the injured players? And we know that's not always the best way to get good value. So not necessarily the strategy I want to implement. But another good reason for not buying in right now is there's still so much we don't know about this upcoming season. We don't know who's good, who's not. We don't know, we have all this speculation, but there's surprises every year on both ends of the spectrum, and being really good, being really bad. And, maybe more importantly, who's healthy. There's a lot of time, there's training camps, there's preseason stuff going on. The injuries happen anytime, and they could happen early in the season. And if I buy now, that's just adding that risk to my plate and taking something out of my storage, I guess you could say, of picks for the future, whatever, liquid assets I have, and putting them at the forefront and putting them at a little bit of risk. If I'm aiming to compete this season, I'm willing to make moves now, especially for assets that are more likely to be longer lasting assets. But I do want to be leaving something in the tank for the road ahead that allows me to make adjustments, pivots as needed, adding players as needed in the season, spending future draft capital now, especially if you don't get any in return. If you're making some moves where maybe you're sending a future first, getting a second back so you have something to play with in these deals later on down the stretch, that's something I can palate a little more. But the last thing I want to see is teams going and, selling everything they have to have this decked out lineup. And one thing we know is that the paper lineup that you have in August will not win your championship. It's about making the moves during the season, as well as prepping yourself to be in a position to make those moves. The moves that you're making now won't win your league, but they could lose them, if you ask me. And not saying that this one move is going to do that, but there are certainly moves in the offseason that can lose you your league.
My goal in almost every single rookie draft is to leave that draft with more draft picks in next year's draft than I started with. Sure. So, if it's a 4-round rookie draft, I try to make sure that I leave my rookie draft with 5 draft picks for next year. And that could be an extra 4th. It could be an extra 3rd. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm fluid in every situation. And that could be annoying to some people because almost every single time, and this is not more annoying than you are because you do it too, is I say, hey, my pick is on the board. And to some people, that's very annoying. That's something that I try to do. I agree with this point wholeheartedly. It's going to flow into my next point in just a second. But yeah, man, going into a season without having like my first and second round pick, I almost try to never, ever do that. And then it kind of bleeds into my next point, Bob, because I totally agree with that. You cannot go all out. However, I am not waiting until August or September to try and buy players to fill out my lineups. I've heard Mike say this so much, and this was more so 2-3 years ago. You don't really hear him say it anymore. It's like, well, you don't have to fill out a lineup in May and June. Well, yeah, you kind of do, because you don't want to be trying to fill it out in September when the adrenaline, which is what we talked about earlier, the adrenaline of the season is here. We're finally, after 3-4 months off since our rookie drafts, we're finally at the precipice of actual football, of actual fantasy relevance. People's gears are all kicked in, more so in September, but you could even translate that into late August, right? Where, hey, training camp news is here. We're just devouring it. Every single player is going to be relevant this year. Nobody looks bad in training camp. It is so much harder to buy players. And look, I know that my earlier point was it's hard to buy rookie players right now. They're both true. This is why in March and April, one of my biggest things was, hey, buy players that you need now. Take a little bit of a risk. Don't buy the super risky players, but take a little bit of risk and make sure that you feel comfortable with a lineup that you have now. Because if you wait until June, July, you're not going to be able to get the rookies you want because there's hopium on those guys. And then in August and September, there's hopium on everybody because, Bob, you follow all the same pages that I do on Twitter. We all get the same updates in our Discord, right?
Sure.
Oh man, Bryce Young looks freaking great right now. Oh man, Anthony Richardson, he is really understanding the offense. So every single report from now until August will be every player will be an all-pro. They're going to hear that. They're going to see the sleeper updates where, who's the latest? Jameson Williams, right? Oh, Dan Campbell said he looks like a man on a mission. Oh, God. Like, that's going to be happening. That's going to happen to every single player, Bob. So trying to wait until August and September to buy these players that you need to fill out your starting lineups, the longer you wait in the offseason, the worse it's going to be, the more expensive it's going to be. And this is why in March and April, they're saying, hey, make sure you have your lineups, kind of set on paper, because it's just going to get worse and worse to try and buy some of these players. So if you didn't listen to that advice then, listen to this advice now. I'm not going after rookie players now. I'm going after the vets. I'm making sure that I feel comfortable with whatever lineup it is. Look, in our Rewinders League, I bought Derek Carr and Brandon Cooks. Like, they're not super sexy names, but I can plug those guys into my starting lineup if I so need for a week or two. And I'm making sure that I don't want to buy Derek Carr September 6th on the precipice of the NFL season. Same thing with Brandon Cooks, because guess what? Brandon Cooks right now is the wide receiver 2 in Dallas, and every single report is going to be, oh my God, Dak Prescott's in a contract year. He looks phenomenal in this offense. Brandon Cooks is the healthiest he's ever been since 2015. Oh, it's going to be just pandemonium with the amount of training camp reports you're going to get. It's already started with OTAs. Everybody looks great. Nobody looks bad. I mean, my God, we're getting Lucas Kroll reports the other day from the Denver Broncos beat writers. Like, give me a break. Like, enough of this crap. It's just going to get worse and worse. So if you haven't addressed your starting lineup, it's time to do so now, one way or the other.
I think the best approach is to slowly but surely build up to make sure your lineup is fed, as opposed to doing it all in the pre-draft process, doing it all in the post-draft process right before the season. Admittedly, you're not trying to add players in August outside of maybe some, late injury buy lows or something like that of that sort, something pertaining to like relevant news of that ilk, not necessarily like, oh, wow, this guy's doing so good, like you mentioned. But yeah, I think building slowly but surely, as opposed to, waiting to fill all of the gaps. Like I said, I don't mind adding players if you have draft capital to spend. And that's why we're so adamant about doing trades where we build up our draft capital pool. And like you said, trading down in your rookie drafts and setting yourself up that much more for rookie drafts next year. And not only that, but if you're competitive, giving you some liquidity to be able to buy, I'm just going to throw out a name here, Tyler Lockett, a Mike Evans, not a dying asset, but an asset that is on the decline that a no longer competitive team might not want down the stretch to help you fill an injury hole in your lineup or something like that down the stretch. You can't do that if you don't have draft picks, or if you are, and if you do have the draft picks and they're way far out, you're going to have to pay a heck of a lot more. You're going to have to pay like a 27 first to go get Mike Evans versus a 25 second, to kind of offset the time value and everything like that. But not that I'd want to do that either. And that's the point. Yeah, Zach, I like this point a good bit. Don't wait too long to fill your lineup, but it's all about balance, and it's all about, taking the approach and, playing off the values that exist in the landscape itself that is Dynasty, as opposed to trying to wait to the last minute. And, don't let somebody leverage you into, hey, you have a lineup gap, I'm going to exploit you for picks here. Don't let people do that. But it's still just a means of like, hey, you do have a spot to fill it before you get to the season, because otherwise you might be in some dire straits when we get there. So Zach, today we are looking at some certifying moves to not make. I've pulled 3 of the most disgusting trades I could find. 2 were sent in through our Discord. This is not made by our Discordians, thankfully. 1 was made by our Discordian, but he got the better end of the deal. So it's just for educational purposes at this point. But got a few deals. We're going to be talking about why they're so bad, how we're going to fix them, talk some proper values. You get the picture. So, hey, if you want to see some of these completed trades that are dropped daily, hourly sometimes, check out that Discord, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind, free 7-day trial. Check out some completed trades and some commentary on these trades as well in live time. So we'll look at this first deal, and I'll admit there is a lot going on with this one. But all you need to know is we are sending a 2025 first. One side is sending a 25 first. I'm sorry, we're not sending. but a 2025 was sent in this deal. In return, this opposing team got a 25 first as well. So we swapped first. And then that team also gets a 26 third, AJ Dillon, Brendan Rice, and Jaheim Bell sent in Discord from Alan, I believe, was the one who sent it on over. I appreciate you for sharing your trade that happened in a league. So my first question is this, Zach. Obviously, this deal is wrong. My big questions, why are we swapping first before the season starts, before we know what teams are going to be? Yes, I have to assume one team looks really bad, and we're assuming that that pick is going to be much higher than the other one. But then on that same token, if that pick is so surefire to be a good pick, why is the pick exchange so little of an impact? Like a 26 third, AJ Dillon, Brendan Rice, Jaheim Bell are not needle movers. To me, this is a boredom trade. This is a trade that you're just making for the fun of it at this point. You're just kind of like, oh, how can I try to get the edge up on my league mates next year? This is what you try to do. How I fix this one, Zach, before I kick it to you, not making the deal. Or if you do think that you're like, you have this better pick that is locked in, surefire better pick, for getting whatever pick you're getting in return, get something better on top. Zach, what are your thoughts on this one? What are you thinking?
This is a trade when it gets accepted and you click the trade notification and you go into your league and you're just like, why? And you ask, and sometimes the people that made this trade are like so offended you asked why.
What do you mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with you. I really don't have anything to add on top of this. The way to fix this is just not do it. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And like you said, the add on top of a not even a third and 25, a 26th third.
Yeah.
And a bunch of guys that probably are not even fantasy relevant at all this year. It moves the needle for me 0.0%. It gives me zero motivation to do this trade. I get I'm getting 5 for 1, but okay, like, do I have to, cut 4 other players or 3 other players on my roster to get this done? Like, this is just seems like a much ado about nothing, in my opinion.
A silly trade. So, hey, learning point here. Don't make boredom trades. Don't swap first round picks before the season starts. Anything can happen at the end of the day, especially if you're sending your own first away. The last thing you want to do is lose control of your own first round pick. Maybe the thought process here is they're getting their own first round pick back and they're sending one that they think is later. Here's a bunch of garbage to try to get my pick back. I still don't like the trade by any stretch of the imagination, but it's some rationale that maybe I can get behind it. But hey, trying to understand the insane is how you go insane. So with that said, we'll move on to the second trade here and try to understand more insanity. This one, we've talked a little bit about this. We discussed this in our recent live stream. Hey, if you want more live streams, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you want us to live stream about. There's been polls in the community tab. Love to hear some feedback there as well. But on this one, we sent a 2025 first for Zack Moss. Some formatting here. It is a 12-team, 1 quarterback, start 8, 1 PPR, no tight end premium. Zach, my question to you, because I think we can agree this is poor value for Zack Moss, and certainly an overpay, albeit a running back in a 1 quarterback league, a little more valued. But what should the price be for Zack Moss in this one?
I probably feel a lot different than other people. I think people have gone, and this is the 6th time I've said this in the last 3 months, that people have gone insane over Zack Moss. Dude has a track record of being a meh running back that had 4 or 5 decent games last year in a Shane Steichen-led offense. Let's do some digging in who's looked good in the Shane Steichen offense. Well, how about Miles Sanders looked really good with Shane Steichen as offensive coordinator? How do you look without him last year after getting a 4-year, like $20-some-odd million contract? Oh, so good. He's like the 3rd string running back right now in Carolina, right? So is it more so that Zack Moss is good or that Zack Moss is just mid? Because everyone and their mom in the fantasy community and their dads and their brothers and sisters and pets and everything thinks Zack Moss is good. And I'm just like, Zack Moss has been the most mid running back since he even came out of college. He was a 3rd round pick. He was just a dude. Like, what are we doing as a community sometimes? Now we're trading 1st round picks for Zack Moss. You know what the right price is for Zack Moss? A 3rd round pick. You want to give a 2nd round pick? Fine. You better get a 3rd round pick back. There's no way in hell that I'm paying a 2nd round pick straight up for a 26-year-old mid running back his entire life, except for like a 4-game run that he had last year. Okay, it's Zack Moss. What are we doing? Like, what was the contract he signed? 2 for $8 million. Probably cost him like $0 to move off his contract next year. I don't know that. I haven't looked at it in so long because I'm sick of looking at it because people are ridiculous. The right price for Zack Moss is a third-round pick. He's a 26-year-old, maybe 27-year-old running back that signed a very minimum contract. It's not minimum, but it's like just over the minimum. I think it was 2 for $8 or something like that. Maybe he's getting the Bengals bump. I don't know. Why is anyone paying a second-round pick, much less a first-round pick?
Yeah, Zach, you were pretty much right on with your assessment. It's a 2-year, $8 million, all told. So yeah, you were right on. And cutting him next year, it's more profitable to cut him than to keep him. So, and that's, I believe, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's pre-June 1, post-June 1 cut, doesn't matter. It's all the same to cut him and do it pretty easily. They're incentivized to do so. They save money doing it. And Chase Brown is a better running back on that team, if you ask me. So that's that. But yeah, I think I think you touched on a late second if you're getting a third back. Even that I don't like, unless maybe you have Chase Brown and you just want to lock down the backfield, get that running back monopoly going, Zach, that we talked about last week. Maybe something like that, but Zack Moss is just not a running back I believe in. Like you said, he's Mr. Mid. So high puppy in the background. And speaking of puppy, Zach, none of my dogs believe that Zack Moss is a good running back. So thank you very much for not including them in the discussion. And hey, put some respect on the dogs in the comments. We want to hear if you have some puppies in the comments. We're big dog people, Zach and I.
Big dog people. Love dogs.
So moving along here to the last one I got, and this one blew my mind. I saw it go down in the trades. This was a whole buzz. There's a lot of context here. I went full detective spec on this one, trying to get to the bottom of how could this possibly happen to somebody in a paid league. This is a buy-in league. I didn't go as far to ask what the buy-in was or anything like that, but wanted to leave some privacy to the imagination, I guess. But so in this 10-team Superflex league, start 9, 0.5 PPR, no tight end premium, the 310 was sent for Bryce Young, a quarterback in a Superflex league. 310 for Bryce Young, Zach.
What?
Now, I know. And I want this to be clear when I bring this up. This is not saying, hey, go try to make this deal or anything like that. This is a terrible deal at the end of the day. But purely the goal is to peel this apart and discuss why it's not a good deal, and most importantly, highlight what the value should be. Some notes, some background that might be going on here, especially if you're in a one quarterback league, possibly considering changing over to a Superflex league. That's what happened here. This league was converted from a one quarterback to Superflex this offseason. I'm assuming there was some lead up to that. It wasn't a 1-year shift all of a sudden that, hey, this is a Superflex league now. So maybe this manager doesn't understand the shift in value, especially without seeing a rookie draft first, where quarterbacks are clearly going to come off the board a lot faster, because it was the 310 that was moved. So no rookie draft has happened yet. So if that rookie draft had happened, maybe they see quarterback go a little earlier. This just highlights, pay attention to your league format. And if it changes, how does that impact player and positional value? Like it certainly does a quarterback in a Superflex versus a one quarterback league. It's one of the biggest differences in values among all formats. So it was noted that as well, that this manager was frustrated with Bryce Young and had mentioned, hey, I'm trying to get rid of him. And our Discordian knocked on some doors, and the guy said, I'll take a third for him. And he just hit full send, which, yes, I'm sure he knew that this was a terrible deal, but the deal got accepted at the end of the day and was reviewed by the league, reviewed by commissioner. This deal passed. And nobody said boo about it, no blowback on it at this point. It could happen down the way, but this is a case of selling low for the sake of selling low, which is also something you should just never do. If you're frustrated with a player, fine, I get it, but to just, and just not do your due diligence of saying, okay, well, what is this player worth? What should this player be worth? It's not like you couldn't go on any trade calculator site that's free. It would tell you that Bryce Young is worth more than 310. Go watch any rookie mock draft in a Superflex or a startup draft Superflex on YouTube. You can find them out there. There's some out there. There's articles out there. There's so much more you could have done than just say, get Bryce Young off my team. I'll take whatever for him, basically. And that's what happened. It comes down to know your league, know the values of players in your league. This is, feels like boilerplate stuff that everybody should know. But here we are. We're here to educate. We're here to help people learn. This is definitely a rookie mistake. This isn't somebody who's been playing for 10 years, doesn't have a ton of Superflex acumen built up or anything like that. Like, this is clearly a new player, new to Superflex, maybe new to Dynasty as well. So, you know, at the end of the day, what Zach fixing this trade, feel free to add in anything you want to for in terms of just how much this has just been fumbled. What should the value be for Bryce Young, do you think?
I mean, I think the value is probably a current late first to early second round pick, just based off of where he's going in startups. Depends, you know, really how you feel about those guys at the end of the first round. I'm still holding out hope for Bryce Young. I think you are too. You know, if he's going to succeed, it's going to be in the situation that he's in. It's not going to be in the situation that he was in last year. It's going to be this one with a coach that has revitalized careers before, with a revamped offense. They've invested a lot of money in that offensive line. They brought in skill position players at all levels, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs. So really, that's everything you wanted them to do. But I mean, that was my first question when you sent this offer was, is this a one quarterback league? Because then it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I mean, this is just probably part of the learning curve of switching over to a super flex league. At the same time, I will say, you know, just given the context that you gave me, and I'm using that information to make this point, is this is where I would say that having a dialogue really does go a long way. Because if you had just sent an offer for Bryce Young in a super flex league, the 310 is never getting it done. And, you know, you would assume that it would take a late first, an early second, even a mid second, whatever. And you would send that offer. You would never send the 310 for Bryce Young in a Superflex league and expect that to get done. But when you reach out to the owner and you say, what are you looking for? And they say a third round pick. Boy, can I not get to that trade screen soon enough to send that third round pick? So this is where, like, I'm a big proponent of, if I want to get a deal done, I want to reach out to someone and see what they want. I don't just send blind offers for the most part. That's just why I appreciate like having a dialogue instead of sending a blind offer, because in this case, if you send a blind offer, you're probably sending more in value than you had to. You had the dialogue, you found out what they wanted, and boy, did you send that offer as soon as you possibly could.
Yeah, that's a great add-on point, Zach. And hey, another resource that could help you not make a boneheaded mistake like this, being able to have a community Discord reach out. Ours is available for a free 1-week trial, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get over there, try it out. Let us know what you think. Chat it up with myself, Zach, the rest of the crew, and all of the 200 plus supporters we have chilling in that Discord, ready and rocking to help you fix your team and improve your team as time goes on. I do hope y'all enjoyed the video. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below what moves you're trying not to make and what moves you're actually trying to make. Be sure to let us know. We want to hear all about it. But with that said, we're going to get the heck on out of here. We will see you in the next one. But until then, I hope that y'all have a good one.